The trial begins. The great hall of the alien court was silent. Only the sound of chains dragging across the black stone floor echoed. The air was cold and heavy, filled with a smell of burning oil and strange incense. Tall alien guards with armored scales stood in lines, their glowing eyes never blinking, at the center of the hall. A small alien girl stood, her wrists bound with metal cuffs that looked far too heavy for her thin arms. She had silver hair falling over her face and pale skin that shimmered faintly under the harsh lights. Her eyes, large and bright violet, trembled but still carried a spark of pride. She was not crying, not begging, not even speaking. Around her, the crowd of alien nobles sat in their high seats, their robes dragging like shadows, their voices whispering sharp words. They called her a traitor, a thief, a danger to their people. She was just a girl, maybe 15 years by human years, yet they accused her as if she was a monster. The judge, a towering figure with horns curved like blades, slammed his staff on the floor. The sound made the entire chamber shake. "The crime is clear," he declared, his deep voice echoing. "The girl has broken our law. She dared to show mercy to the outsiders. She dared to hide food for the weak. Mercy is weakness, and weakness is forbidden." The girl lifted her chin, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Her chains rattled when her knees gave way slightly. Still, she held herself straight, even as fear squeezed. Her heart, in the back of the hall, hidden among the shadows, sat a boy, a human. He was younger than most soldiers, his dark hair messy, his clothes plain and worn from travel. No one had noticed him slip inside. He had followed the sound of voices and found himself in this place. When his eyes fell on the girl, something inside him froze. He saw how small she looked compared to the aliens around her. He saw how unfair this trial was. She was alone, fragile, and yet no one spoke for her. No one defended her. His fists clenched at his sides. His heart pounded so loudly he thought the guards might hear it. The judge raised his staff again. "The punishment shall be pain," he declared. His words fell like thunder. "She will endure until her spirit breaks, until she learns her weakness is a crime." The crowd hissed with cruel delight. Some laughed, some clapped their clawed hands. The guards began to drag the girl forward, towards a platform with cruel machines of torture, glowing faintly red. The girl stumbled, but did not cry. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd, searching, hoping, but finding no one. The human boy felt his chest burn. Something stronger than fear pushed through his body. He could not stay silent. He could not just watch. The words tore out of his throat before he even thought them through. "Stop." His voice echoed across the chamber, sharp and young, but filled with fire. Every alien head turned at once. The hall fell into sudden silence. The judge's glowing eyes narrowed. "Who dares interrupt this trial?" he thundered. The boy stepped out from the shadows, his legs shaking but his eyes steady. He pushed his way past the guards who looked at him with confusion. A human here was rare, almost forbidden, yet here he was. Standing tall in front of them all, he pointed at the girl, his voice louder this time. "She's innocent. She doesn't deserve this." His chest rose and fell, his breath heavy. "If you must punish someone, punish me instead." Gasps filled the hall. The aliens muttered among themselves. Some laughed, others stared in shock. A boy, a mere human, offering himself to pain for her. It was madness. It was impossible. The girl's eyes widened, chains clinking as she stumbled back. She stared at him with disbelief. No one had ever spoken for her before. No one had ever stood for her. Her lips trembled, and though no sound came, her heart screamed with emotion she could not name. The judge leaned forward, his horned shadow falling across the floor like a beast ready to devour. "A human dares," he growled, his voice shaking the walls. "You would take her punishment, boy." The boy did not flinch, his jaw tightened. "Yes," he shouted. His voice echoing, "Hurt me, not her." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The girl's violet eyes filled with light, her breath caught in her throat, and for the first time the cruel court was shaken. The story of pain had not yet begun. But something new had just been set in motion, something no alien had expected. One human, one boy, standing against the cruelty of an entire world. Asterisk, the boy's words still echoed in the alien hall, bouncing off the black stone walls like a strike of thunder. The guards froze where they stood. The nobles leaned forward in disbelief. Never had anyone dared to challenge the judge, never had a mere human spoken against their law. The judge's burning eyes locked on the boy, his lips curling in cruel amusement. "You," he growled, "a human, a weak creature from a broken world. You want to carry her punishment?" His deep voice filled the silence, carrying both anger and twisted delight. The boy's fists tightened at his side. His legs trembled, but he forced himself not to step back. His heart beat like a war drum, but his voice came steady. "Yes, punish. Me, not her," he said again, louder this time, each word cutting through the air. A ripple of laughter burst among the nobles, sharp and mocking. Their voices hissed through the hall like snakes. "Foolish human," some jeered. "Let him suffer. Let us see what his kind is made of." The girl shook her head, her chains rattling as she stumbled forward. "No," she cried, her voice breaking for the first time, her violet eyes wide with terror. "Don't do this, please. You'll be destroyed." But the guards pulled her back. Forcing her down on her knees, the boy turned his head just enough to meet her gaze. His brown eyes steady despite the fear behind them. "You're not alone," he whispered, his lips barely moving. "I won't let them break you." Her breath caught in her throat, her heart thundering with a feeling she could not name. Never in her short, painful life had anyone spoken such words to her. The judge slammed his staff on the ground. The sharp crack silenced the crowd. "So be it," he announced, his deep voice shaking the chamber. "If the human wants to take her punishment, then let the test begin. We shall see how long his flesh lasts." The crowd erupted in cheers and cruel laughter. The guards surrounded the boy, seizing his arms, their claws digging into his skin as they dragged him forward. He did not resist, his eyes only flickered back once. Locking on the girl, she fought against her chains, tears burning her eyes. "Stop, please. He's done nothing." Her voice cracked, but the nobles only laughed louder. To them, it was entertainment. The boy was thrown onto the platform where the machines of torment stood. Alien devices glowing faint red, each shaped for pain. Metal coils, needles, cuffs designed to squeeze flesh and bone. The air around them shimmered with strange energy. The guards strapped his wrists and ankles with heavy iron cuffs, pinning him down against a slab of cold stone. His breath turned shallow, his chest rising and falling. The air smelled of burnt metal. His body shook, but his jaw remained tight. The judge lifted his hand, signaling the start. "Begin," he commanded. A hum filled the chamber, low and threatening. The machines awoke. Arcs of glowing energy danced between coils. A strange whip of light flared into existence. One of the guards took it in his hand, its edges crackling with power. The girl screamed, her chains cutting into her skin as she tried to break free. "No, stop, please." Her voice shattered against the uncaring walls. The guard swung the whip down. It struck the boy's chest with a crack of burning light. He arched, his teeth clenched, a strangled sound escaping his throat. Pain shot through his body like fire, but he refused to cry out. The nobles leaned forward, whispering in disbelief. He should have screamed. No human can bear that. How long? Can he last? The girl's violet eyes filled with tears. She shook her head again and again, her heart breaking with each strike. The whip fell again, tearing through his shirt, searing his skin. His breath caught, but his lips pressed tight. He would not give them his cry. Through the haze of agony, the boy turned his head, searching for her in the crowd. Their eyes met, and somehow he managed a weak smile. "You're worth it," he mouthed, his lips forming the words she could barely believe. Her chest tightened, her tears spilling freely. Something inside her broke and burned all at once. She had lived her life in chains, mocked, punished, told she was nothing. But this human, this boy, chose pain just to save her. The judge leaned forward, his cruel smile fading slightly, his eyes narrowing. This was not how it was supposed to be. A human was supposed to break quickly, cry, beg for mercy. Yet this boy resisted. The guard struck again and again. The whip of light burned across the boy's back, his skin raw, his body trembling with every lash, but his voice held, his spirit unbroken. The crowd's laughter slowly turned into whispers. Confusion spread, some even fell silent. The boy's defiance unsettled them. The girl's hands bled from fighting her chains, her violet eyes glowing faintly now with a strange light, something inside her stirring, a hidden strength she had long buried. She whispered under her breath, "Please, stop hurting him. Hurt me instead. Just let him go." But deep down, a spark ignited, a spark that would not die. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, breathing raggedly, then opened them again. His gaze steady despite the torment. He whispered, his voice barely audible, but strong enough for her to hear across the hall, "They can't break me. Not while you're watching." And in that moment, the cruel trial was no longer about punishment. It had become something else entirely. A test not of law, but of the bond between a broken alien girl and the human boy who chose her over himself. The judge's staff trembled against the floor. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. And the question no one dared to ask filled the air: how far would this boy go? And what would awaken inside the girl if he did not stop? The boy lay strapped to the cold slab of stone, iron cuffs digging into his wrists and ankles. Every breath came sharp. The marks of the glowing whip still burned red across his chest. The crowd of aliens whispered louder now, some amused, some disturbed, none expecting him to last this long. The judge leaned forward, his eyes like molten fire. "Enough," he growled, his voice heavy with doubt. "If this human truly wants to take her punishment, then we shall see how far his body can go. We will give him the full pain test." The words rippled through the chamber. The nobles hissed and nodded. The guards exchanged quick glances. Even they knew the test was brutal. No creature ever walked away unchanged. The girl's heart dropped, her chains rattling as she thrashed, her violet eyes wide with terror. "No, please, don't," she screamed, her voice breaking, but the judge silenced her with a slam of his staff. "Watch, little traitor. Watch how your savior breaks." The machines began to shift, gears grinding, arcs of red energy sparking between them. A second device unfolded above the boy, a curved frame of needles and coils that hummed with alien power. The air crackled, smelling of burnt metal and ash. The boy's body tensed, sweat dripping down his temple. His breath came ragged, but he forced his eyes to stay open. He would not give them the victory of seeing fear in him. The first surge hit. A wave of energy rushed through his body like fire and ice at the same time. His back arched violently against the cuffs, his teeth clamped shut, his jaw trembling, his vision blurred with white sparks. The girl screamed, her own body shaking as if the pain had struck her too. "Stop it! You're killing him." Her voice shattered against the walls, but the crowd only leaned closer, watching with cruel fascination. The judge's lips curled into a cold smile. "Remarkable," he muttered. Most humans would have begged by now. The second surge came, stronger, ripping through muscle and bone. The boy's hands curled into fists, his nails cutting into his skin. A low sound escaped his throat, but he forced it down. His chest heaved, his eyes burned with tears, yet he held on. The girl's violet eyes glowed faintly, a strange shimmer. Flickering inside them, she could feel something awaken in her chest. Something old, something powerful, but her chains held her down. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, don't die, don't give up." The boy turned his head slowly. Pain etched across every line of his face, but he found her eyes in the crowd. Through the haze of agony, he managed a faint smile. "I won't," he breathed. The words cracked but unbroken. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Whispers grew among the nobles. "How can he endure this? He's just a human. He should be nothing. He should already be broken." Their voices carried doubt that had never existed before. The judge slammed his staff again, furious now. "Increase the level." He barked, his voice thundered. "Let us see if his bones still hold after this." The machine hummed louder. The arcs of energy turned blinding white. The sound of power filled the hall like a storm. The third surge struck, so powerful the slab itself cracked beneath him. His body convulsed. His throat opened with a cry, but not of defeat. Not of begging. It was a roar, a sound of raw will. The girl gasped. Her heart hammering against her ribs. She had never seen such strength. Not from her own people, not from anyone. The glow in her eyes brightened. Her chains shook harder, the iron creaking as if something inside her tried to shatter them. The boy's chest rose and fell like thunder, his body scarred and trembling. He whispered again, barely holding breath, "I told you. They won't break me." Tears spilled from the girl's eyes. But they were no longer just of fear. They were of something stronger, something alive. Her lips trembled as she whispered back, though no one else could hear, "Then I won't let them break me either." The crowd, once cruel and mocking, now fell into uneasy silence. The nobles shifted in their seats, their eyes darting between the human and the girl. Their certainty of superiority cracked like thin glass. The judge's grip on his staff tightened, his fury growing. This was not just defiance. This was something dangerous, something he had never faced before. He leaned forward, his voice low but sharp as blades. "You may endure, human, but everyone breaks eventually." The boy coughed. His lips bloodied, but his eyes burned like fire. He raised his head against the weight of his chains, and in a voice that carried through the entire chamber, he said, "Not me. Not while she's watching." The girl's glowing eyes widened, her heart bursting. The cuffs around her wrists cracked with a sharp metallic snap, her alien power beginning to bleed through at last. The test was still ongoing, but something had already shifted in the air, something the judge and the nobles could not control. This was no longer just pain. It was the birth of a bond, stronger than chains, stronger than fear, stronger than the cruelty of the court. And, deep inside the girl's heart, a vow formed, silent but unshakable if he could endure for her. Then she would rise for him, no matter the cost. The chamber was thick with silence after the last surge. Smoke rose from the cracked slab. The boy's chest heaved as he struggled for breath. Sweat and blood mixed on his skin. His wrists were raw where the cuffs had bitten deep. Yet his eyes still held light, dim but unbroken. The girl stared at him, her violet eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her chains trembled, the metal groaning as if about to snap. Her body felt weak, but her spirit surged with fire. She had thought herself powerless. She had thought she was only a prisoner meant to suffer. Yet watching him, she felt something awaken that she had long buried. The nobles whispered in fear now, their mocking voices gone. "This is impossible," one hissed. "No human should endure this," another muttered, "and look at the girl, her eyes, they are changing." The judge slammed his staff down hard, trying to silence the growing unease. "Quiet," he roared, but his voice no longer carried the same weight. For the first time, doubt touched the edges of his command. The boy lifted his head slowly, his lips torn and bloodied, and through the haze of agony he found her gaze. A faint smile touched his face, weak but real. "I told you," he whispered, his voice rough. "They can't break me." "Not while you're here," the girl gasped, her breath catching, her chest heavy with emotions she had never felt before. Her eyes burned with tears. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why do this for me?" His smile widened just a little, though his body shook violently. "Because you don't deserve this." "No one does," he said, his voice cracking but strong. "And because I'd rather suffer than watch you be destroyed." Her heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. She had lived her whole life hearing she was nothing, hearing she was weak, hearing mercy was a curse. And now this human, a stranger, chained and bleeding, was teaching her a truth she had never known, that she mattered. The cuffs on her wrists cracked louder, sparks of violet light racing along the chains. The crowd gasped, pointing her power she's awakening. One cried, fear dripping from his voice. The judge's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his staff. "Control her," he snapped, his voice thunderous. But the guards hesitated, uncertain. Fear crept into their stance. The boy coughed, blood staining his lips, but his eyes never left hers. "Don't be afraid," he whispered hoarsely. "You're stronger than they want you to believe." The words struck her like lightning. Her entire body trembled, not from fear, but from strength she had never dared to claim. Her chains split open with a sharp, metallic crack. The pieces clattered to the ground, glowing faintly before turning to dust. The hall erupted into chaos. The nobles rose in alarm. The guards drew their weapons. The judge bellowed in rage, "Restrain her." But the girl stood tall for the first time, her body still frail. Yet her presence filled the hall like a storm. Her violet eyes glowed like fire. Her silver hair shimmered under the lights. Her voice rang out, clear and fierce. "Enough." The sound silenced even the crowd. The guards froze mid-step, and for the first time, the girl felt no fear in her chest. She felt fire. She felt will. She felt alive. The boy smiled faintly through the pain, his heart swelling at the sight of her. He had endured every lash, every search. But seeing her rise gave him strength he didn't know he still had. The girl stepped forward, though her legs shook. Her chains gone, her power crackling faintly around her like light, she stood before the judge, her voice steady despite her trembling body. "You will not hurt him anymore." The judge's laughter rolled like thunder, cruel and sharp. "You dare defy me, child? You are nothing." But the girl raised her head, her glowing eyes unyielding. "I was nothing," she said, her voice cutting like a blade, "until he showed me I was worth something." Gasps filled the room, her words struck deep, not just to the judge, but to every noble watching. The boy whispered again, his voice so faint only she could hear, "Don't stop now." Your free tears streaked down her face, but her voice grew stronger. "We are not your toys. We are not your slaves. We will not break," she declared, her words echoing louder than the judge's staff ever had. The judge slammed his staff again, fury blazing, cracks splintering across the stone floor. "Then you both shall die," he roared. The guards rushed forward, weapons raised, the machines of pain still sparking behind them. but the girl moved instinctively. Violet light bursting from her hands. A wave of energy slammed across the hall, throwing guards back like leaves in a storm. The crowd screamed. Some fled. Others fell to their knees in shock. The chamber trembled with power it had not felt in centuries. The boy, still chained, closed his eyes briefly, relief washing over him, not because the fight was over, but because he had seen her stand, he had seen her find her strength. The girl rushed to his side, her hands shaking as she tried to break his cuffs, her violet glow searing into the metal. "Hold on," she whispered, tears falling onto his chest. "I won't let you suffer any more. Not alone." The chains cracked under her power. Sparks flying, the boy breathed heavily, his eyes soft as he looked at her. "I told you. You were never alone." And in that moment, through blood, chains, and fire, a bond was sealed between them, a bond forged not by fear, but by sacrifice and courage, a bond that no court, no judge, no world could shatter. The test had begun as pain, but it had ended as something else, hope. And hope was more dangerous to the cruel than any weapon. The hall was no longer silent. It was chaos. Guards lay scattered on the black stone floor where the girl's violet power had thrown them. Smoke rose from shattered weapons. The nobles clutched their robes in fear, whispering furiously among themselves. Never had they seen such defiance. Never had they seen a prisoner rise with such force. The judge's burning eyes glared from his high seat, his horns glowing faintly as fury filled him. He gripped his staff tighter, cracks spreading across the floor under his rage, seized them both. He thundered, his voice echoing like thunder through the chamber. But the girl no longer trembled, no longer hid her eyes. Her glowing violet gaze burned like fire as she knelt beside the boy. His body broken and weak, his wrists and ankles still bound by heavy iron cuffs, blood trickling from where the metal bit deep. Her hands shook as she touched the chains. Her power flickered like sparks. "Hold on," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll free you, I promise." The boy smiled faintly despite his pain, his lips cracked and dry. "I knew you could do it," he breathed, his voice weak but filled with trust. The cuffs resisted at first, forged from alien steel meant to hold any creature, but her power pulsed brighter. Her violet glow pouring into the metal, cracks spread like spiderwebs, sparks flying as the iron screamed under her strength. The guards tried to rise again, staggering toward them with spears drawn. But she turned her head sharply, raising her hand. A wave of violet energy burst outward, slamming them back against the walls. Their weapons clattering uselessly to the floor. Gasps filled the room. The nobles recoiled, some hiding their faces, others whispering in disbelief. She was supposed to be weak, one hissed. How can she have such power? Another trembled, and the human, he's still alive. How is this possible? The judge rose slowly, his massive figure towering above them all, his voice a growl of fury. "You dare defy my judgment? You dare stand against the law of this court?" The girl looked up at him, her silver hair shimmering in the glow of her power. Her voice steady, though her heart raced. "Your law is cruel," she said, her words ringing across the chamber. "You punish kindness, you destroy mercy, you fear love, but today I will not fear you." Her words struck deep, echoing louder than the judge's thunder. The boy lifted his head weakly, his brown eyes finding hers. "Don't stop now," he whispered. "You're stronger than all of them." Her tears fell, hot and fierce, onto his wrists as she poured every ounce of her strength into the chains. The iron glowed red, then white, then finally shattered into dust. The boy gasped as his arms fell free, his body trembling from exhaustion, but a weight lifted from him. He was no longer bound, no longer helpless. The girl quickly turned to his ankles, her glow burning brighter. The cuffs cracked and broke apart one by one until he was free. She caught him as he sagged forward, his body heavy but warm against hers, for a moment. The world seemed to pause, the human boy and the alien girl clinging to each other at the center of the chaos. Blood and tears mixing with light and fire. The judge roared, his voice shaking the hall. Enough. You think chains were all that bound you? I am the law, and you will bow before me. He raised his staff, slamming it down with a burst of crimson energy. The ground cracked, a shockwave rushing toward them. Stone splitting under its force. The girl threw her arms around the boy, shielding him with her body, but instead of breaking, her violet glow flared, clashing with the judge's crimson power. The two forces collided with a deafening crash, sending sparks flying like stars across the chamber. The crowd screamed. Many nobles fled, their fear drowning out their pride. The boy gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand, though his body screamed in agony. His arms slipped around her shoulder. His voice hoarse but unyielding. We fight together. She looked at him, her tears still shining, her voice soft but fierce. Together, the guards rallied once more, dozens of them charging with blades raised, their steps shaking the floor. But the girl stepped forward, her violet power sweeping in wide arcs, slamming them back like waves crashing against a shore. The boy, though weak, clenched his fists, his eyes blazing with fire. He picked up a fallen spear from the ground, his hands shaking but steadying as he raised it. He would fight even if it broke him. The judge's fury shook the very walls, his crimson glow filling the chamber with a storm of rage. You cannot win, he bellowed. I will crush you both until nothing remains. The girl's voice rang clear, defiant and unshaken. You can try, she said, standing tall beside the broken but unyielding boy. But we are not afraid anymore. Her power surged higher, the violet light spreading across the walls, climbing the pillars, turning the cruel chamber into a blaze of hope. The boy stood beside her, his body weak, but his spirit burning brighter than ever. Their bond, forged in suffering and sacrifice. Now unbreakable, the nobles, the guards, even. The judge felt at the fear of something greater than chains, greater than pain, greater than the cruelty they had built their world on. It was not strength alone. It was not power alone. It was something far more dangerous. It was the unyielding bond between a human boy and an alien girl, and that bond had just broken every chain. Asterisk, the chamber shook like a living beast. Violet light from the girl clashed with crimson fire from the judge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The stone pillars groaned as if they might collapse. Guards who dared to charge were thrown aside by waves of power, their weapons shattered like glass. The boy leaned heavily on the spear he had taken, his body trembling with every step, but his eyes burned steady, his breath ragged yet fierce. Beside him, the alien girl stood tall, her violet eyes glowing like stars in the dark. She no longer seemed fragile, no longer a prisoner. She looked like a storm given flesh. The judge raised his staff high, crimson lightning dancing along its edge. His horns glowed brighter. His voice thundered. You dare resist me. You dare defy the law. I am judgment itself, and I will grind you both into dust. His staff slammed down. A shockwave of red energy raced across the chamber. The floor split open with fire. Nobles screamed as their seats crumbled. Some fled through the exits. Others fell to their knees in terror. The girl spread her hands. Violet light surged outward. Clashing against the crimson wave, the two forces collided, shaking the entire hall. For a moment, it felt as if the whole world hung in balance. The boy staggered, the force almost knocking him back. But the girl caught his arm, steadying him, her voice firm. Stay with me, he nodded. Sweat running down his face, his chest burning with every breath. But his words came strong. Always, The judge roared again, sending another storm of energy toward them. Stronger, heavier, meant to crush them in one strike. But the girl's power surged higher, fueled by the bond between them. Violet light wrapped around both her and the boy like a shield. The attack struck, but did not break them. The nobles gasped. Whispers rising. Impossible. No one has ever stood against him this long. The human should be dead. What is happening? The boy clenched his teeth, gripping the spear tighter, his voice hoarse but fierce. We can't fight him forever. We need to move. We need to get out. The girl looked at the massive doors at the far end of the hall, guarded still, but weakened by fear. Her eyes narrowed. Then we'll carve a path. Together, they took their first steps forward. Slow, but unyielding. Each step defiance, each step hope. Guards rushed to block them, but the boy thrust his spear, knocking one back. Though his arms shook with weakness, the girl raised her hand. A wave of violet fire blasting another into the wall. The path was chaos. But it was theirs, the judge bellowed, his crimson glow flooding the chamber. You cannot escape. The law does not forgive. The law does not forget. His power surged again, beams of fire raining down, smashing the floor, shattering stone into fragments. The girl shielded the boy with her body, violet light forming a dome around them. Every strike hammering against her, her legs shaking but refusing to give way. The boy grabbed her hand, his voice breaking but steady. You don't have to carry this alone. Share it with me. Her eyes widened, her heart pounding. Then she nodded. Their fingers locking tight, his warmth flowing into her. Her glow blazed brighter. Not just violet now, but streaked with gold. Their bond shaping into light itself. Together, they pushed forward, their joined strength parting the storm. But the judge would not yield. His fury shook the chamber. Cracks ran up the walls. The ceiling groaned, dust falling like ash. If you leave this place, you leave only over my corpse. Ah, he roared. Stepping down from his high seat, towering like a mountain of flame, the boy raised his spear. His knees trembling, but his voice rang clear. Then so be it. The girl's violet eyes blazed, her silver hair whipping in the storm. We are not yours to break, she declared. The judge charged, crimson fire spilling from his staff, the ground splitting under his steps. The girl and boy stood firm, their bond glowing brighter than ever, their light colliding with his storm. The clash was deafening. Light and fire exploding, guards thrown like ragdolls, nobles fleeing in terror, the chamber itself crumbling as if it could not hold the fury within. The boy's chest burned, his body screaming with pain, but he shouted through it, "Keep going. Don't stop." The girl roared, her voice filled with every tear, every chain, every scar. We will not bow. The explosion tore through the hall, dust and fire swallowing everything. For a heartbeat, the world turned silent, nothing but smoke and the sound of falling stone. When the dust cleared, the judge still stood, his body cracked with light, his fury unbroken but weakened, his breath heavy, his crimson glow dimming. The boy and girl stood side by side, battered, bleeding, but unyielding. The great doors now just within reach. Freedom so close, the judge raised his staff one final time, his voice a growl of death. Then come, if you dare, and fall with me. The girl and the boy looked at each other, their hands still locked, their eyes filled not with fear, but fire. Together, they stepped forward, ready for the last stand or the first step into freedom. Asterisk. Humanity's flame the chamber groaned, as if the walls themselves feared what was coming. Cracks raced across the stone pillars. Flames licked the floor. The smell of smoke and blood filled the air. The nobles had fled. The guards lay broken, or unconscious, and only 3 figures remained standing in the storm: the boy, the girl, and the judge. The judge's massive frame glowed faintly with crimson light, his staff raised, his horns blazing like fire. Though his power had dimmed, his fury still burned like an endless storm. His voice thundered, "You think you can defy the law and live? You think your bond makes you strong? It will burn you both to ash." The boy staggered forward, his body barely holding, blood dripping down his arm, his clothes torn. Yet his grip on the spear was unbroken. His brown eyes glowed not with power but with fire of will. He shouted back, his voice hoarse but fierce, "Then burn me first. But you will never touch her again." The girl stood beside him, her violet eyes glowing like a second sun, her silver hair whipping in the heated air. Tears streaked her face, but her voice was unshaken. "We are not yours to judge. We are not yours to chain. We are free." The judge roared and struck his staff down. Crimson fire surged forward like a tidal wave, ready to crush them both. The boy and the girl held each other's hands tighter. Their lights fused, violet and gold swirling together into a blazing storm. They stepped forward into the wave, their voices joined as one. "We will not break." The two forces collided, the explosion deafening. Light and fire swallowing the chamber whole. The stone floor cracked apart, the walls split. Dust and flame bursting outward like a dying star. For a heartbeat, silence followed, nothing but smoke. And glowing embers. Then, slowly, the boy's figure emerged, staggering, his arm wrapped around the girl. Her glow still burning faint, but steady. The judge fell to his knees across the chamber, his staff broken in two, his horns cracked. His crimson glow sputtering like a dying flame. His voice was a whisper now, bitter and hollow. Impossible. No law, no power, should fall to a human and a child. The girl stepped forward, her violet glow surrounding her. Her voice soft but sharp as steel. It was not power that broke you. It was what you never understood. She knelt beside the boy, holding his shaking hand, looking at the broken judge. You ruled through fear, but he stood through pain. He chose kindness when you chose cruelty, and that is stronger than any law. The judge's body cracked with final light, his form collapsing like shattered stone, and with a roar that shook the chamber one last time. He crumbled into dust, his ashes scattering across the floor. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the boy's ragged breathing and the girl's quiet sobs. She turned to him, tears shining in her glowing eyes. "You endured everything." "For me?" she whispered. "Why?" "You could have stayed silent. You could have lived." The boy smiled faintly, though his body trembled with pain. "Because no one deserves chains," he said, his voice cracked but strong. "And because you were worth saving." Her heart broke and healed at once. Her tears fell onto his face. Glowing faintly with her power, she whispered back, "Then I'll never leave your side, not as long as I breathe." He coughed weakly, but a laugh escaped. Him, soft and real. "Guess we're stuck together then." The girl smiled through her tears, her hands tightening around his, forever. Together they turned toward the massive doors, the path to freedom, the fires dimming around them. The chamber behind collapsing into ruin, each step heavy but filled with hope when they pushed open. The doors, the cold night air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and freedom. The stars spread wide above them, endless and bright. The boy fell to his knees, exhausted, but the girl caught him, lifting him with trembling strength. "Lean on me," she whispered. "We'll walk together." He nodded, his head resting briefly against her shoulder. "As long as you're here, I can keep going." The stars reflected in her glowing violet eyes, and for the first time in her life, she felt no fear, no chains, only freedom. Only the bond they had forged in fire and pain. Behind them, the cruel court lay in ruins, its judgment broken, its chains shattered, But ahead of them lay something new. Something neither of them had known before: hope. The boy's voice was soft, barely more than a whisper. But it carried into the night like a flame. Humanity's flame doesn't die. Not even here, the girl smiled. Her tears shining in the starlight, and now it burns in me too, hand in hand, step by step. They walked into the night, their bond unbreakable, their future uncertain, but free. Their story only just beginning, and so ended the trial of chains and pain, but began the tale of two souls bound by courage, defiance, and love.